Is the Bible a myth or is it fact? More than a decade ago, filmmaker Tim Mahoney started to document one of the Bible's biggest stories, the exodus of the Jewish people out of the land of Egypt. His investigation led to a personal crisis of faith and a compelling new documentary called Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus. Here's a look at the trailer.
I don't believe there was a single event that we can call the Exodus.
So far, there is no documented evidence about the Exodus.
Exodus did not happen in the way that it is described in the text.
How can we prove that?
You look for a collapse in Egyptian civilization, and that's where you'll find Moses and the Exodus. People are telling us that there was no Jericho at the time that Joshua conquered the Promised Land. Why don't we ask the simple question, when was Jericho destroyed?
Do you think this is Joseph?
Either it is Joseph or it's somebody remarkably the same.
We have tombs that are clearly those of foreigners, Semites. We can tell this by the pottery, by the kind of weapons. These are not Egyptian type daggers. They have donkeys in some cases buried with them. This was not an Egyptian practice.
This is real evidence.
Look at your evidence and come to a conclusion based on the evidence.
Patterns of Evidence.
Well, Tim, it's great to be with you again. We were here many years ago in Jerusalem, and it's great to see that the film is finally being released to the public. Tell me exactly why you made this film.
The reason why we made this film was, there's a sort of a long explanation. I was actually thinking it was going to be quite simple, just searching for the route of the Exodus. And when I was involved with this, people said, well, why would you search for the route of the Exodus when there's no evidence that the Exodus ever really happened at all in Egypt? And that was quite a profound idea. I thought, well, what are you saying? So I actually went to the location where the events were supposed to happen in Goshen in the eastern delta, and went to the archaeological sites, and that's what I was told, that there was no evidence for the Exodus. And that began this 12-year journey of mine, actually a little bit of a crisis of faith for me, because I came home from that first trip to Egypt startled by that, but decided to continue on with this investigation. And that's how this film, Patterns of Evidence, came to be.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of history, archaeology, and it's a bit of a mystery thriller as well. What were the things that surprised you as you went through your own crisis of faith and then made your investigation?
Well, I think that what I started to see was that there's this idea that Ramesses is the Pharaoh of the Exodus, and I think that that happens in a particular time of history, and when everyone looks at that particular time, they're actually correct that there is no evidence for the Exodus. But other archaeologists and Egyptologists were saying, but wait a minute, there are evidences that are earlier than Ramesses that match this story. And so what I did as a filmmaker was to start to look at that as we gathered more and more pieces of information and interviews. We gathered that and we started to see that there was a mosaic that was happening, that there were patterns that were starting to show. And we looked at the Bible and we treated it just as a historical document, and we started to say, well, what does the Bible say, and what does this evidence look like? And eventually, that's how we were able to put those patterns of evidence together, so we kind of overlap them with the biblical story.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the main significance, the importance of your film?
Well, one of the most important things is that up until now, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, people have been very critical of the Bible. And they said, you know, there just is no evidence. And if the story of the Exodus isn't true, then what Jesus Christ said and the apostles about Moses and the Exodus and what the Apostle Paul said, then those statements are false. Because if there was no Exodus, then it starts to collapse the whole story. The whole Bible has a foundation within this story of the Exodus. What this film does, I think, which is I believe it's profound, is that it actually shows where the pattern of evidence is, and that, I think, has never been done before.
So how valuable can this be to pastors as they teach from the Old Testament?
Well, a lot of young people today don't buy because the Bible tells me so. That's not enough for them. And this material here, I think, actually helps people who have a scientific mind, who want to have more sophisticated answers than just the Bible tells me so. There's a line in the film that faith and science are both pursuing truth. And I think the pursuit of truth here is what this film is about.
I would agree, Tim. I've seen the film, and it is stunning, and I would encourage everybody to see it. It's great to be with you, and hope to see you back here sometime in Jerusalem.